Welcome to Short Movie Channel. Today's movie starts with Adrian, who is watching a recording sent to him by Bellan. In the video, Bellan greets him and sadly tells him that she can no longer stay with him and that she's leaving. She admits that she didn't have the courage to say this to his face and preferred to avoid confrontation. At the end of the recording, she asks him not to look for her and begs him not to hate her. Adrian, deeply affected, goes out searching for her but can't find her. Frustrated and upset, he spends the night at a local bar. A waitress named G, who works there, greets him, but he doesn't respond. It's clear from his expression that he's heartbroken. She asks him what he'd like to order, and he pulls out a bottle of whiskey, his eyes brimming with tears. G feels sorry for him as he starts crying. Adrian keeps drinking until he finishes the entire bottle and gets heavily drunk. G approaches him and tells him it's time to pay the bill since they're closing. He pays but struggles to keep his balance, clearly unaware of his surroundings. As he leaves, he bumps into another man, which escalates into a fight. The man punches Adrian, knocking him to the ground and continuing to hit him. The bar owner steps in to stop the fight, telling the man that Adrian is drunk and not in his right mind. Later, G comes outside and finds Adrian still lying on the ground. She tries to help him and picks up the keys he dropped. She advises him not to drive in his condition and offers to call him a cab. When she asks him where he lives, he can't answer. G decides to take him to her house so he can sleep it off. The next morning, Adrian wakes up in an unfamiliar place. G walks in to check on him and asks him why he got into a fight the night before. He doesn't answer but apologizes and tells her he has to leave immediately. He gets in his car and drives to work. It's revealed that Adrian is a maestro who was once famous, but he has stopped composing music because of his emotional struggles. While at work, he tries to complete a composition but can't, further proving that something is still wrong with him. That night, Adrian returns to the same bar where he met G. He apologizes for his behavior the previous night and thanks her for helping him. He asks her to sit and have a drink with him. She agrees, and later, he takes her to his music rehearsal space. Eventually, he invites her to his house. G asks if he's married or has a girlfriend, and Adrian responds that he's single. She agrees to go with him to his house. The next morning, G goes to the bathroom to brush her teeth and hears a strange noise coming from the sink. Feeling puzzled, she dismisses it and continues exploring the house. She notices a piano, a dog, and an art table with drawing supplies. Just as she's about to pick up a piece of paper, Adrian startles her and asks if she's been up for long. She tells him she just woke up. He suggests having breakfast together and takes her to the garden. G compliments the house, saying it's beautiful and spacious. Adrian adds that it's also peaceful, which helps him focus better. Suddenly, there's a loud knock at the door. Two men introduce themselves as investigators from the district attorney's office. They greet Adrian and ask him if there's any new information about Bellan's disappearance. Adrian denies knowing anything. At that moment, G comes downstairs, surprising the investigators, who seem puzzled by how quickly Adrian has moved on, especially the younger one, who appears suspicious. The investigators explain that immigration services confirmed Bellan hasn't left the country, and they request permission to search the house. When the investigators entered the house, the junior detective asked Adrian if Bellan had left anything behind. Adrian replied, "Yes, she left some creams, a toothbrush, and her art supplies." At that moment, Fabiana looked upset because she realized he had lied to her about not being in a relationship. She took the opportunity to question him while the investigators searched the garden. She asked, "What's going on?" He replied, "She's not missing. She left me for another man." She responded, "Did you even ask her family about her?" He said, "I don't want to worry them." She then asked, "What if she's dead?" He denied it. She added, "Maybe she's been kidnapped?" Again, he denied it, growing frustrated with her constant questions. He glanced at the investigators and sarcastically said, "Do they think I killed her and buried her in the garden?" That night, Adrian was playing music while Fabiana was taking a shower. While she was in the bathtub, she felt something strange. The water started moving even though she was completely still, as if someone was tapping in the area. She was startled, slipped out of the tub, and began pondering what was happening. Outside, thunder and lightning struck, and the house lights went out, which heightened her fear and made her scream loudly. Adrian came to reassure her, telling her not to worry, explaining that the power outage was due to the lightning and that it would come back soon. The next day, the junior detective approached Fabiana at work and struck up a conversation. He asked, "Don't you think it's strange that he's dating you right after his girlfriend disappeared?" She replied, "I don't see anything wrong with it." He then said, "We suspect he killed her." She responded, "Just because you suspect him doesn't mean he did it. Are you jealous of him?" He sarcastically replied, "You got what you always wanted, a rich guy like Adrian, not someone poor like me." With a smirk, she said, "You know you're right." That evening, Adrian performed with his orchestra in a concert, and Fabiana attended, watching him from the audience. After the concert, Adrian introduced her to Tito, the orchestra manager, who praised Adrian, saying, "We'll never forget you." This left Fabiana puzzled. The next day, while taking a shower, the water suddenly turned scalding hot, burning her. When she went to the mirror to check her burns, she heard the same strange sound coming from the sink. This terrified her. Suddenly the door opened, but it was just the dog, Hans. She shouted at him and left the bathroom. Later that night, while exploring the room, she noticed a key hanging on a chain in a hidden spot. She grabbed the key and stood in front of the mirror to inspect it. At that moment, the rain and thunder started again, and the lights went out, as usual. Overwhelmed with fear, she started shouting, "Who's here?" She thought someone was trying to scare her. She picked up a fireplace poker to defend herself if necessary. The dog barked, startling her, and she tripped, falling onto the piano, hitting her head and losing consciousness. When she woke up, she felt pain in her head. Adrian gave her a painkiller, assuring her she'd feel better in 30 minutes. She begged him not to leave her alone in the house again, saying she felt like there was a ghost. He laughed and dismissed her fears, saying, "Stop being ridiculous." She insisted, "I'm serious." She then took him to the bathroom to hear the strange sound coming from the sink. Adrian admitted, "Yes, there's a sound, but it's just the wind hitting the pipes." He tried to calm her down and make her feel safe. The next day, Adrian received a phone call, and he appeared deeply saddened. At that moment, Fabiana asked him, "What's wrong?" He replied, "The prosecutor wants me to identify a body they suspect might be Bellan." He went to the morgue with 2 investigators, and when they uncovered the burned body, he told them, "This is not Bellan." They asked him, "Are you sure?" He confidently replied, "Of course, I'm sure, absolutely sure." Afterward, Adrian got into his car and drove off. When he arrived home, he heard Fabiana talking. He entered and asked her, "Who are you talking to?" She replied, "No one, I was just looking for a book." She then asked, "What happened at the morgue?" He responded, "It wasn't her, and honestly, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I've forgotten her." At that moment, he hugged her, and the story flashed back to Bellan's memories with Adrian when they lived together in Spain during their happy and beautiful days. Later, Adrian got a great job opportunity in Colombia, and he had to leave within 15 days. We learned that they would stay in that country for a year. He asked her to come with him, and she agreed, saying, "All right, but take good care of me." They traveled together, and every day, she attended his concerts, where his performances were as spectacular as always. One night, as Bellan was heading to meet Adrian after a concert, she saw him standing with Veronica, a colleague in the orchestra. She smiled at them, took him by the hand, and walked away. Later, Bellan went to the house where Adrian now lives and saw a dog named Hans, which belonged to the house's owner. The house's owner shared stories about her husband, a German officer, how they fell in love, and how they moved to that house in Colombia. Then, she gave Bellan a tour of the house and mentioned one issue. Bellan asked, "What is it?" The owner said, Whoever lives here must take care of my dog. Bellan reassured her, saying, Don't worry, I love dogs. Indeed, they took the dog to the house and started decorating it to their liking. Life settled down and seemed perfect. One day, as Bellan was heading to Adrian's office, she saw Tito, the orchestra manager, enter the office with Veronica. It looked like there was something suspicious between them. Bellan smiled politely but didn't speak to Adrian until later. In the car, Adrian noticed her silence and asked, What's wrong? She replied, Nothing, but don't be surprised if one day you wake up and don't find me next to you. The next day, Bellan searched Adrian's phone and found messages between him and Veronica. Later, she went to her art studio. When Adrian came home, he asked about her day, then she confronted him. What's going on between you and Veronica? He said. Nothing, it's just work. She retorted. And the messages between you two? Realizing she had gone through his phone, he got defensive and replied. It's just harmless flirting, but you are the only one I love. She told him to remove Veronica from the orchestra, but he replied, I can't do that. Angrily, she said, Fine, go to your job and leave me alone for a while. Later, the house's owner visited Bellan. Bellan shared what happened with Adrian, and the owner also shared memories of her German engineer husband. Bellan interrupted, saying, I wonder, if I died or left Adrian, what would he do? The owner replied, You could test him. Surprised, Bellan asked, How? The owner said, I'll tell you something, but it must remain a secret between us, and you can't tell anyone. Bellan agreed, and they went into the bedroom. She opens the door inside the wardrobe with a key she has and says to her, This is the secret hideout my husband built specially to hide in and avoid getting caught because he was an officer in the German army during World War II. She starts explaining the place, saying that this glass lets you see everything happening without anyone seeing or hearing you. You'll be able to see and hear everything happening in the house. She gets excited about the idea, then the homeowner leaves. The girl sits down to record a video for Adrian. That's the video we saw at the beginning of the movie. She gathers all her clothes, puts them in the hideout, writes a note for him to see, and runs quickly to enter the hideout before he arrives. She manages to lock herself inside just in time. Adrian arrives with flowers, but when he sees the note and watches the video, he becomes deeply sad. He throws the flowers at the wardrobe in frustration. Meanwhile, inside the hideout, she feels thrilled, realizing he truly loves her. She rushes to find the key in her bag so she can open the door and go back to him, but unfortunately, the key isn't there. It must have fallen out while she was running to hide. Now she's trapped and has no way out. She starts calling out for him, but he can't hear her. She tries to break the glass, but it's unbreakable. Sadly, she realizes she's in a terrible situation. We switch back to Adrian, who picks up the flowers off the floor. Standing outside, he starts crying, thinking she left him for another man. Meanwhile, inside, she's crying and regretting what she's done. She keeps saying she loves him and begs for his help. Later, when investigators visit Adrian at his office, accompanied by Tito, the orchestra director, Adrian shows him the video she recorded the day she disappeared. Back at the house, she searches for anything to help her inside the hideout, but only finds a notebook and expired food. She eats it out of hunger, even though it disgusts her. When she tries to drink water, it looks repulsive, but she forces herself to drink because she has no other choice. A little later, she sees Adrian sitting outside, drinking whiskey and watching her video. At the end, he says, I wish you happiness. She gets furious upon hearing this, realizing he's moving on. She taps on the water pipe to get his attention, but it's no use. One day, Adrian meets Fabiana, and when she sees them together, it breaks her mentally. She watches Fabiana using her toothbrush, which angers her. She starts yelling insults, realizing Fabiana can't hear her, but notices that Fabiana reacts slightly, just to the echo of her own voice. Fabiana later jumps on the bed and sees the chain with the key. At this moment, the trapped woman becomes desperate, hoping she'll be found. When Adrian leaves to identify a body at the morgue, Fabiana goes to the sink and fills it with water to test if there's a ghost or something supernatural. As Fabiana begins to feel strange presences, she hears some noises but can't figure out what's happening. Finally, she discovers the hidden door behind the wardrobe mirror. She's about to open it but suddenly changes her mind and apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry, I can't do this." This crushes the trapped woman's hopes completely. Fabiana, burdened with guilt, tries to contact her through the mirror by filling the bathroom with steam and writing messages, but there's no response. Meanwhile, a young investigator gives Fabiana a file containing photos of Adrian with another woman named Veronica, warning her not to trust him too much. Adrian ends his relationship with Veronica, saying he can't continue with her. Meanwhile, Fabiana finally unlocks the hidden room and finds the trapped woman lying down. As she approaches to check on her, the woman suddenly attacks her with a glass bottle and escapes, locking Fabiana inside. Adrian arrives just as the woman leaves, and she sends him a picture of herself with his dog and the secret room's key before disappearing from his life forever. Finally free, she feels the taste of freedom. And that's how today's movie ends. I hope you all enjoyed it with us. If you liked this video, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe.